What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? How are we doing today? My name is Everett DeLorme, and this is the Volleyball Journal. Yes, I have finally come up with a name after a couple of weeks of asking you guys what you guys thought and talking about it on the Discord and here on YouTube. I decided to go with the Volleyball Journal. Now, I know a lot of you wanted Crossing the Line with Everett DeLorme, and I did think about this. However, I maybe we want to keep that for something different later on, because the reality is that I don't think this show will be crossing the line all that much. This is just a show for your daily dive into, not the daily dive, your weekly dive into the world of volleyball. I'm going to get you up to date with everything that's happened over the course of the past week. So I don't think that there's going to be there very much for me to be crossing the line on, mostly because it's just myself talking to y'all about volleyball and everything that's gone on over the past week. So hope you guys have had a great week. We are in full swing in the pro volleyball leagues now. Pretty much every league in the world has kicked off. And everyone is in full swing now, which means that there is a ton of volleyball to watch. And to be honest, this show might even move to be bi-weekly. There's just too much going on a week-by-week basis. I think at the very least, once Champions League and the other CEV events start up, that I will do one episode or one show specifically just for the CEV, just for Champions League. Because right now, as it is, you know, I've got show notes upon show notes. I've got tons of things to touch on. You know, I'm going to talk about Poland. I'm going to talk about Italy, both men and women. I'm going to talk about Turkey, men and women. I'm going to talk about a little bit of Germany. We're going to talk about the SVL League in Japan today. So there's honestly so much to talk about, so much volleyball, and I just think that it's. I just think it will be difficult to touch on everything if I don't do this almost on a bi-weekly thing. And if I add Champions League onto this as well, I think it's just going to be too much. So I think that once Champions League starts up, with the CEV Cup, Challenge Cup, all of those things start up, then we're going to have to do something just for those events in itself. And to be honest, I'm almost considering splitting it up and doing one episodes for men and one episode for the women. But at the same time, I like having it together in the same way. So I'm trying to find different ways to be able to switch it up. Maybe some weeks I'll do two different events, and other weeks maybe some weeks I'll do two episodes, and some other weeks I'll just do one, depending on everything that is going on, both in my life and in the volleyball world. I do think that having volleyball in the title will help with the algorithm for all those out there who are looking for volleyball content. That's a part of the reason why I went with the Volleyball Journal. And I also think that this is just going to be a little bit of my, oh shoot, I haven't been recording this. So I'm going to start recording this now, and we'll see how it goes for those on audio later on. I apologize. But yeah, I've settled on a name. I don't want to go back and forth. There was a lot of good suggestions out there. And ultimately, I think the Volleyball Journal is going to be a good thing to talk about. But without further ado, let's get on to what happened in this week in volleyball, because I'm going to start in Poland. Oh, that's not where I wanted to go. I'm going to start in Poland in the PlusLiga, because we are already well into match day number 2. Of course, Poland, because they prioritize TV, you know, like everyone should, they only play one match at a time. It's not like other leagues where we see an entire slate of 6 matches all starting at the exact same time. In Poland, we have the ability to watch every single match, and they only go one match at a time. So about half of the teams have played 2 matches. The other, about just under half, have only played one. But what we do know is that the usual suspects are already at the top of the table. Warszawa, the defending champs Lublin, Resovia, and JW Jastrzębie are already all 2-0. And first and foremost, I do want to talk about last year's champions in Lublin, because they had quite a difficult week, right? They had 2 playoff teams taking on Norwich Częstochowa and then Zoksa this week. And I thought it was a really strong week for Lublin, the defending champs. They came out absolutely firing against Norvid Częstochowa in their first match. They got a nice little 3-dong, 25-16, 28-26, 25-17 in their first match of the season. And you know what? Norvid went out, got Luciano De Cecco this year, and it really didn't matter because Lublin just absolutely dominated in every aspect of the game. From the baseline, they were so good. 8 aces, only 14 errors in the 3 sets of play. Blocking-wise as well, they were really good. 11 blocks overall, led by Marcin Komenda, which is really something to say. Maybe not known as the most athletic setter out there, but was really doing a good job. And offensively, he did a fantastic job as well. His team hit a 51% with a 41% efficiency. Leon picked up where he left off last year with 15 points, and there was another 14 points from Kevin Sosik as well. And really, I don't think there's really too much to say about this game. This one was an absolute domination from Lublin right from the start. If you're a Canadian fan, we did see Jackson Young make his first regular season appearance. He came in halfway through the second set for Hiller Heno, and we'll talk about Heno and that Jackson Young and Heno decisions there for Antigua after we talk about the second match a little bit, because I think it's been a little bit interesting. I won't lie, but Leon unreal in this match, 9 for 18 in attack with a block and 5 aces. He had 20 serving attempts in general, and that's what it came down to, right? Norvid just really struggled to pass the ball. They got aced 8 times, and it just wasn't looking that pretty. Only 18% perfect in system was Norvid, and then their outsides really struggled. Lipinski didn't look great. He was 4 for 11, and the same thing with Abadapur. Abadapur only 7 points. He was 7 for 18 with no blocks. Indra, all right overall, but not fantastic. 12 for 29, and it was a big summer for Indra and a big year last year. So I'm almost expecting to see him kind of take a dip a little bit. Now, in their second match that they played, was it on Saturday against Zoksa? Yeah, it was Saturday against Zoksa. It was a 3-2 decision for Lublin in this one, and a little bit more back and forth in a rematch of last year's quarterfinals for the PlusLiga. And I think there was kind of 2 things for me in this one. A, Leon did not have a good match. This was not a good Wilfredo Leon match. He was 12 for 34 with 2 blocks. Only 14 points in this one. He was the 4th highest scorer for Lublin, and you could tell that he really struggled to just get things going, really struggled to find any rhythm at all, whereas on the other side of the net, it was a one-man show for Zoksa. Kamil Richlicki, who's come in to be their guy, proved that he could do it. Proved that he could do it really well. 25 for 42. He did get blocked 5 times, but as we're learning, this is a Lublin team is a very good blocking team. 15 blocks as a team with another 16 touches. That's going to be led by 7 blocks by Alex Grozdanov. He had 16 points in this one. He was 8 for 14 with 7 blocks. I thought he was outstanding. Maybe even deserved the MVP, but that ultimately went to Marcin Komenda. Now, I did talk about Hiller Heno a little bit before, because I didn't think he was that terrible in the Norvid match. I didn't think he was fantastic, but I didn't think he was great. Of course, they did go to Jackson Young, which I do love. And now this match, it seemed that his leash was even shorter. He was 1 for 1 in attack. He was targeted 4 different times in serve receive, did get aced once early in the first set. And then in the first set, he was pulled right away for Jackson Young. And now, I'm not going to sit here looking at a gift horse in the mouth, because I want to see Jackson on the court, and I thought he was really good, especially in seeing some of his first real PlusLiga action. Up against a very good team in Zoksa. And I think it took him a little time to settle down, especially offensively. I think when he was subbed into the first, he was like 1 for 5 attacking, but he ended up being 13 for 25. Passing was pretty solid as well, too. He had targeted 22 times, passed 45% positive and 18% perfect. Also got a couple of aces, and then led the match in digs with 10. Which was outstanding for Jackson. So I love seeing how this is a guy who was supposed to play in the Bundesliga, play for Friedrichshafen this year, and last year, he didn't even make the Canadian B team. This year, he came in, was one of the big surprises for my Maple Volleys this summer. And I love to see the immediate impact he's had in the PlusLiga already. But I do kind of feel for Hiller Henno, because it does seem like it just seems like he's not necessarily getting the same kind of leash that that Jackson is getting overall. But in this one, because Leon struggled so much and so much of the offense went to him, it was really a back and forth game. Now, we saw 5 different Lublin players get into the double digits. Kevin Sosek ended up being the guy, and he was 18 for 29, hitting a 55% with a 55% efficiency. He had 2 blocks as well on this one. And to me, and also some people in the Discord, it does look like both Komenda and Sosek really benefited from what was a long international season, right? These are 2 guys who hadn't really seen much international play before this year, and they got to play all of VNL all throughout the World Champs, and it ended up working for them. And you do like to see Komenda back in his own offense and using that pipe and being able to switch some things up, some things that we didn't really get to see for Poland this summer. Now, another guy to point out, I pointed out Alex Grozanov before with the 7 blocks, but also Finn McCarthy doing great things from the baseline. 5 aces, 5 of Lublin's total 9 aces in this match. Now, he did miss 6 of them, but he led the team in total attempts with 23. So you love seeing the Canadian boys out there getting the job done. Lublin, with a really good start to the season, having to play 2 pretty tough teams and getting the wins. Now, on the Zoksa side of things, I do think it is going to be a little bit difficult. Igor Grabelny, who was so good for them last year, so efficient, was not in this one. He was 6 for 15 with a 0% efficiency. He also only passed 7% perfect and 31% positive. So not ideal for Zoksa, and they made Quinn Isaacson run with only 11% perfect. So just about 10% of the time they were in serve receive. They were only about 10% of the time they were in serve receive. They were able to get that ball on his head, which is really hard to run an offense from there. So I ended up just being a bit of a high ball offense to Rich Licky. Rich Licky, as I said, was really good. He had 27 points in this one, but definitely Zoksa is going to need a little bit of support on the outside. Rafael Shimura, not great in serve receive either, only 12% perfect, which he's a guy who needs to be out there nailing down the ball. Same thing with Grabelny. That's part of the reason why I thought Zoksa was actually pretty good last year. Both those guys had really good serve receive tendencies. Of course, they had Eric Shoji as well, so that leads into some things as well. And just that efficiency isn't quite there with Isaacson at the helm as opposed to Janusz. But those are some really, really big shoes to fill for Quinn Isaacson. And ultimately, I think he's going to be able to do it. I'm really excited to see what he can do with this team. But this one, it really had to be... actually, sorry. I apologize. Quinn Isaacson actually led the match in digs. I said Jackson Young did earlier, but Isaacson did with 12. So to me, it has to come down to the outsides just doing a better job from Shimura and Grobelny for Zoksa. All right, moving forward, still in the PlusLiga here, we did have another really big matchup with the rematch of last year's semifinals between Warszawa and Zawiercie. Now, these are 2 teams that more or less stayed the same, but it was utter domination for Warszawa. They just play such a cohesive team match, and they dominated in this one. It was a 3-dong, 25-20, 25-23, 25-19 for the team out of the Polish capital. And Warszawa really just likes to spread that ball around, right? Linus Weber, the German, proving that he can be that number 1 option through and through. He was 14 for 19 with a 68% efficiency. He had 2 blocks and an ace in this one, and really just took all of the attention from Zawiercie. And Zawiercie, on their hand, picked up Bartłomiej Bolange, who was, of course, the opposite for Warszawa last year. Bolange, still decent, 15 for 25, but on the Zawiercie side of things, they really struggled on the left side. Aaron Russell, who didn't play this summer at all, not a great outing. He was 3 for 15 with a 0% efficiency. He did have 2 blocks to come to 5 points, and the same thing with Bartosz Krolek. 8 for 23 out there with only a 23% efficiency. But for me, Warszawa is just such a complete team. They do so much, so good, and play together. Kevin Tilley, even though he wasn't great offensively, 5 for 13 with a 7% efficiency, did pass the ball fairly well, 42% positive and a 21% perfect. And then the same with Bartosz Bednarz. Maybe his passing numbers weren't as good. Same thing offensively, lacked a little bit of efficiency, but did have 5 blocks to go on with that. So 10 blocks in total for Warszawa. They just outblocked Zawiercie all the way through this game. They really minimized their errors in serve as well. Only 14 errors for 3 aces. You'll take that all day long, especially when the struggle that Zawiercie had in serve receive as well, passing under 20% perfect. So round 1 goes to Warszawa. As I mentioned before, they are 2-0 to start the season. That was Zawiercie's, I think, only their first match and only match so far of this year. So we're no doubt and undoubtedly going to see them get better, but they're going to need to be a lot better, especially from their left sides moving forward. Now, next up, we have JW, and JW, I think, of all these teams, maybe doesn't deserve the 2-0. I think they got really, really lucky getting that 2-0 win against Olsztyn. This was a match that I watched, and you know what? On the Olsztyn side of things, I thought their offense was absolutely cooking. They did some really, I'm going to get into the match totals. I thought Johannes Thiele does a really good job at just spreading that ball around. Their blocking as well was outstanding. They had 16 blocks in this match, but I think honestly what it came down to is that like they dominated in sets 1 and 2. It was all Olsztyn through sets 1 and 2. And I mean, if you look at the scores, it was 25-23 in favor of JW. Olsztyn kind of let it slip away at the end there in the first, then 25-19, 25-17 for Olsztyn. And then in the fourth, Olsztyn just kind of switched things, not really switched things up, but you could tell that their focus just wasn't at the same level. And that the serving pressure that they were bringing on JW earlier on in the match wasn't present in the same way. JW bounced back to take it 25-18 and then 15-11 in the fifth. And to me, not to sound like a broken record, that my former co-host was it was really all came down to Jan Hadrava, right? Offensively, he was bad. 7 for 29 with only a 3% efficiency, and that's even worse than considering the fact that he was 4 for 5 in the first. So Hadrava went from being 4 for 5 in the first to 2 for 24 throughout the rest of the match. We did see Arthur Schwartz a little bit in this one, getting subbed in on that double sub in the second, third, and fourth, but we didn't see it on past that. And to me, that was the big difference. On the JW side of things, it wasn't like his counterpart, Hadrava's counterpart on the opposite, was doing much better. The Duck, Luka Kaczmarek, also not good offensively. He was 8 for 28 with a 7% efficiency. He did have 2 blocks, but only 5 digs out there. Kaczmarek is one of the few guys who, should be a big ticket player for this team and just not necessarily getting it done. But 2 guys who have been getting it done and consistently so far for this season for JW, that is Nick Schergen. He was their team leader with 19 in this one. He was 11th for 33 offensively. Not the best out there for JW, but he did have 5 blocks and 3 aces. Passing wise, struggled a little bit as well. 27% positive with a 9% perfect. Same thing with Jakub Jurczyk, and I know it's a tough one. I think he's only 18 years of old. He was not slated to be the starter this season, but of course, a injury to their their guy who was supposed to be their starting libero really put them in a tough spot, and he got aced 6 times in this one. He got aced 66% of the time for this team, but I did feel like he settled down. He was much better in the fourth and the fifth. Like the fourth, he had 8 targets. He didn't pass any perfect, but was 62% positive. So that at least is good. A little bit not so great in the fifth, was aced once, 17% positive, 17% perfect on 6 targets. So it was a real rough passing day for JW, but they were still able to get out of this match on this one. I think a little bit lucky. I won't lie. And also the other guy, sorry, I didn't even mention him, but Anton Bremer has really been outstanding so far this year for JW. And I'm pretty sure he's won both of their MVPs so far this year. And I mean, in the fifth, he was 3 for 4 offensively, but he had 18 points. 18 points down the middle is quite a bit. He had 2 aces, was 15 for 20. Yeah, he got 20 attempts, hitting a 75% with a 65% efficiency. That's outstanding. I would like to see him be a little bit better. If Bremer can figure out his blocking, figure out how to read a little bit, maybe not be flailing around so much. I know that he's a big athletic guy, and the reason that he's so he has such a big window to be able to get him to hit because he can jump high and he has big long arms, so his window for Tony to hit him is really extensive, but blocking wise does struggle a little bit. So I would like to see him lock down his blocking a little bit, and if he can do that, man, he has to be one of the best players, one of the best middles in the world overall. So JW does squeeze out a bit of a lucky win over Olsztyn, and then won't touch on this one too much, but Bremer also led their other win this week, going 12 for 13 with a 92% efficiency with a block and an ace in their 3-0 win over Suwałki, and just a much better spread of the offense for JW in this one. Now, I'm not entirely sure why we haven't really seen Miran Kujundžić start yet. It's mostly been Mikhail Girzo, and Girzo is all right. I thought Kujundžić coming into the third against Olsztyn was really one of the reasons that they were able to turn things around, but still 14 points for Bremer, 12 for Szczerzen in this one. Szczerzen had a much better passing day. He was 55% positive, 27% perfect, also going 12 for 24 in this win over Suwałki. Bartosz Filipiak with 13 in this one. Asparuhov as well. He had 15, but then, man, Honorato, 4 for 11 with a -10 efficiency. That needs to be a little bit better all around. And I think it was, where's David Smith? David Smith not having the best outing. I did forget to mention that he had 7 blocks in last week's outing. Now, I did talk about Olsztyn a little bit earlier, and they also had a big barn burner against Skra Belchahov. And Skra, I'm still not sure about their ability to build this roster. I'm still not sure on this roster, and ultimately it ended up being a 3-2 win in favor of Olsztyn. So Olsztyn going the limit in both their matches so far this year. Skra took the first 25-21, and then it was Olsztyn in the second 25-18, Skra in the third 25-17, Olsztyn in the fourth 25-19, and then they finished it off 18-16 in the fourth. And, Skra really spread around that offense. They did get 14 blocks as a team with another 13 touches. They also made 40 digs. So, all right, their serving could be a little bit better. 4 aces on 21 errors. Not the best, but I do think that they're pretty efficient. Only 6 errors for Skra in the entirety of the 5 sets. Led it down the way by Arcadius, and then as well Antoine Patron. Arcadius had 18 in this one. He also had an ace and 3 blocks. You saw Bartolomew Lemansky, who was 5 for 12 in attack, and then also 6 blocks. But ultimately went with Olsztyn, and as I mentioned before, they started with Hadrava. Hadrava, not the greatest. He was 6 for 17, and then finally Olsztyn made the move. They brought in my boy Arthur Schwartz to give Moritz Karliczek and Pavel Halaba a little bit of reprieve. Now, I do think that Matrak and Swerin Lipinski, I'm going to have to figure out how to pronounce his name properly, are good down the middle when it comes to blocking. They weren't great in this one. They were a little bit better against JW. But on the outside, I really like Olsztyn's outside. Moritz Karlitzek was fantastic in this one, passing 70% positive. He was 21 for 37, 27% efficiency, but we won't hold it against him with 2 blocks and 2 aces. And then the same thing with Halaba. Halaba doing a very good job, 14 for 25, a 44% efficiency. And then my boy, Arthur Schwartz, coming in off the bench, finally getting some set starts in the 4th and the 5th, and he ultimately ended up going 15 for 18. 15 for 18 out there was my boy, Arthur Schwartz, finally playing in his homeland. He is Polish by blood. You know, all of us Canadians were just mutts, but did grow up right here in Toronto. So love to see that he's making an immediate impact out here for Olsztyn. And I did talk about it, I think, last week, or maybe I think I was talking about it in the Discord, sorry, but it does make sense. Like Hadrava had 400 points last year for Olsztyn. So you're going to give that guy a chance to hold on to his role. But right now, with the numbers that Hadrava are putting up, I just can't see it happening, especially like the way that he needs to be able to impact the game is from the baseline. And he just didn't do it from the baseline. He was 0 for 7 for aces. You know, he only had 1 ace error in this one. But I think if Olsztyn can tighten up their serving a little bit, they did make 26 errors. This is a team that could potentially make the playoffs. And I'm actually really excited to watch this team. I love Johannes Tila. I think he puts middle blockers on skates. And once they can figure out their lineup a little bit more, I think that this is a team that could be battling for the playoffs. Honestly, to me, when they played JW, they looked better than JW. So that's all I have to say about this one. Moving on to the last kind of big match of this game. It was a barn burner, another 5-setter between Resovia and Gdansk. 2 teams that I think have taken a big step forward compared to last year. Now, ultimately, Resovia did win this one 3-2, but I didn't watch this match, unfortunately. But in the future, I think I will definitely watch this matchup. Resovia won it 3-2, 25-19 in the first. Gdansk won the second, 25-23. Then it was 25. They won the second and the third, 25-23. Resovia won the fourth, 25-23, and then ended up pulling it out in the fifth, 15-13. And you know, it does seem like Resovia is doing it a little bit by committee. Karol Butrin, who I apologize, I made a mistake earlier. I said that I was right. Bolanj played for Warszawa last year, went to Zawiercie. Butrin played for Zawiercie, he went to Resovia. Just to clear everything up, make sure we're clear on all that. Butrin was quite good offensively, 18 for 39 overall. Did have a 25% efficiency, so could be a little bit better there. But you've got Butrin with 24. Yasin Luetzi, had 12. He was 9 for 20, but passed fairly well. And then, of course, my guy, Danny Demyanenko, going 11 for 12 in attack with an ace for 12 points as well. So Resovia really scoring by committee. We're on the Gdansk guide. Alexei Nasevich, 24 for 42. And then he had 2 blocks and 5 aces in this one as the opposite, a total of 31 points for Gdansk. And he is a guy who started the year last year a little bit injured, and I think he's really benefiting from Joe Worsley going over to set for Gdansk, because, you know, that trio of outsides with Tobias Brand, who had 18, and then Piotr Orchik, and Orchik actually led Gdansk in scoring for most of last year. That is a really good trio that they've got over there in Gdansk. And once they can figure out their middle rotation, like Mustafa Mbaye and then Pavel Pietraszko, then I think this Gdansk team can also be very, very dangerous. I love the offense that Worsley runs. I think he's settling in a little bit to the PlusLiga after having played in France, and then, you know, France for the past couple of years, and Germany before that. So as a team, Gdansk was 50% hitting with a 31% efficiency. They did make 13 errors, led by Naskevich, who had 5 unforced errors, but he did have 42 attempts and was, 56% hitting with a 42% efficiency. So overall, not too bad. I do like what we're seeing from Gdansk this year. I do think that they're another playoff team. And once this, I do think that once this Resovia team gets rolling, they're going to be really good, right? Alexander Shalpuk had the start. He wasn't great. He was 2 for 8 offensively, only passed 17% perfect as well on 18 targets. Then he got the yank after set number 2 in favor of Clement Chebul. Chebul, I still think he's going to have to get some things back in order. He's still not 100% from what I understand. We didn't see him at all at the World Championships this year for Slovenia. He was 8 for 18 in the 3 sets that he's played, but passing really well. 50% positive, 35% perfect on 26 targets. So he really handled the load, and that's ultimately what enabled Resovia to be able to open things up down the middle, feed Demyanenko, and ultimately they got the win. So, is it? Yeah, Janusz. Yeah, Marcin Janusz is their setter this year for Resovia. So Resovia, having started the year with another win, they sit at the top of the table they're not at the top of the table. Only Warszawa is at the top of the table because Lublin, JW, and Resovia each got a win in 5, so they've got 5 points. Warszawa has a full 6. But the last match that I do want to touch on is a really big win for Helm. The what a lot of people think is going to be the relegation team in Poland this year. They end up getting a really nice 5-setter. And I mean, Gorzów, in the 2 sets they won, it was 25-14 in the first in favor of Gorzów, then 25-22, 25-22 in favor of Helm, then 25-8 in the fourth. And you gotta feel bad for Gorzów. You gotta finish it off, right? You gotta finish it off. When you beat a team in the fourth 25-8, you gotta bring in your momentum into the 5th set. Losing it, you can't go out there and lose 15-13. So first and foremost, I got to give a shout out to one of the OG Maple Volleys, Jay Blankenau, who led his team in setting. Of course, Jay Blankenau, the setter for Helm. He was brought in last year to help them get promoted. He got the job done. And here in week number 2, already getting their first win, which, there was some people who didn't think they're going to be able to get that job done at all. They hit 46% as a team with a 25% efficiency. The blocking on the Gorzów side was very, very good. Pavel Rushin led the way with 14 points. He was 11 for 26. Gos had 12, Piotrowski had 11, Rune Fastland had 11. Whereas on the other side, man, Gorzów, it's tough when you see Chizoba getting 31 and Matisse Heno, the younger brother, older brother, I think younger brother of Hiller Heno, getting 22 as well. But Gorzów just not doing a good job at respecting their opponent, right? I think that's what this one came down to, is that they won the first set and then relaxed, and then lost the second and third, and then pumped them in the fourth, and then relaxed. And you just got to go out there and play nonstop. The PlusLiga, in my opinion, is the hardest league to play in. No doubt about it. The parity that you're seeing from number 1 all the way down to 14, is that what it is this year? Or is it 12? What is it? How many teams? 14. Yeah, I was right. 14 teams. 16 last year, lost 3, 8, gained 1. That's 14. My math is right on that. So you really have to go out there and play week in and week out. You can't take any matches off, because I see at least 10 or 11 quality playoff teams in the PlusLiga this year. So each win is going to be so important. So that's a really big win for Helm down the stretch to potentially try to avoid relegation. Now, looking forward to some of the matchups this week in the PlusLiga. I do think it's not a down week, but maybe a lesser week. There was a lot of big bangers in week number 1. On Wednesday, the early match, 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. I think I don't even know what time. I'll be honest. Sorry, that's 5:30 p.m. Poland time. I apologize. Poland time. You're going to see Zoksa against Zawiercie. Zawiercie is going to be looking to bounce back. Same thing with Zoksa. Both of those teams starting their season right now 0-1. Also on Saturday in the early match, in the afternoon match, you're going to see JW take on Warszawa. And on the late match, we're going to see Zawiercie taking on Norvid. I think that one is definitely going to be a match that I'm going to have my eye on Saturday, November 1st. And then Sunday, we'll close things out with Helm against Lublin. And then on Monday, we'll see Skra against Zoksa, which is also always a classic battle. So those are some of the matches to watch this week in the PlusLiga. All right. As I said, I love watching the PlusLiga. The production is so damn good, and you get to watch every single match. Unlike this league, the Lega, the Italian Lega Volley, and we are now 2 match days into the Lega Volley, and I don't think it was that interesting of a week. But before we talk about kind of what happened this week, do want to talk about the announcement that we saw today that the Italian Cup, sorry, not the Italian Cup, the Supercoppa, which is usually a preseason tournament, right? Usually the Supercoppa happens early on in the season. Now, it was a little bit difficult with how late the World Championships ran this year, so it looked like they were trying to push it a little bit further. But this is also an event that is supposed to be held in Saudi Arabia, interestingly enough. And now, because of the Saudi Football League, it looks like this tournament is now going to be delayed until Christmas time, which is not great. I'm not going to lie. Like, this is supposed to be a preseason tournament. It is now going to be played pretty much at the mid-season. It is going to be very difficult, especially because right before Christmas, you have the Club World Championships. So the best teams, who are the teams who are going to be in the Supercoppa, are going to be coming back from wherever the Club World Championships are to compete this just before the Champions League, or just as the Champions League ramps up as well. I've seen some players post about it. They are not happy, and, as they should be. I have no idea why they're deciding to play the Supercoppa in Saudi Arabia. That is another thing altogether that I'm not going to touch, because that is politics, and politics, even though they are very present in my personal life, not present here on this show so much. But if you're looking forward to watching the Supercoppa in a couple of weeks, you won't be able to. Volleyball is volleyball. Volleyball is volleyball. But as I mentioned, I think it was just a bit of a boring week in the Lega Volley. However, we did get round 1 of a rematch from last year's semifinals, Perugia against Lublin. That one was the big one. I'm just going to rattle down some of the results here this week. Trentino beat Padova 3-0. Perugia got a 3-2 win over Lublin. We'll talk about that one in just a second. Piacenza beat Milano 3-1. We'll also touch on that one real quick. Modena got their first win of the season with a 3-0 win over Monza. Verona continues to really chug along with a 3-0 win over TGE, Grottazzolina. And then Cuneo putting a really good mark on the relegation race with a 3-dong over Cisterna. And now, well, actually, no, we'll talk about that in a second. But first and foremost, we'll talk about the first big match of the year this year in the Lega Volley, a 3-2 win for Perugia over Lublin. And now, I thought this one was going to be a blowout after the first set. I went for a nice run with my buddy Taylor. He's a former Olympic triathlete for Team Canada. Went to 2 Olympics. Now I'm running with him. I don't know how I keep up, but we're getting the job done. Then we went for beers afterwards, so I was watching it on my phone, and set number 1 was boring. 25-15. It was just Perugia just absolutely pumping Lublin in this one. But Lublin managed to come back, managed to push back, mostly because of their serving. They can bring the heat from the baseline. So first set was 25-15 in favor of Perugia. Then 25-22 for Lublin, 25-20 for Perugia, 25-23 for Lublin, and then 15-11 for Perugia at the end of it. You know what, Anna? It was a humble brag, okay? Because over the years, you guys have watched me be pretty fat. There was a time when I was first doing this show when I was like 225 pounds. And now I'm quite a bit skinnier, but this is more a normal weight for me. And I'm running like a pretty solid, 520 per kilometer. on 10 plus kilometers. So I'm really happy with that. I might even sign up for a bit of a half marathon next year. Okay. So, but this isn't a running podcast. Trust me. You don't want me to hear me talk about running. We're here to talk about volleyball. And for me, this was not a great game for either of these two teams. First of all, it was the worst game that we've seen from Plotnitsky in quite a while. Plotnitsky ended up getting subbed out. He was 1 for 9. He did have 3 blocks, and blocking was a big part of this Perugia game plan in this match overall. They dominated at the net, out-blocking Lube 13-7, almost doubling them up in the blocking department. And for me, it was Perugia trying to manage that first served. While they got 13 blocks, they also got aced 12 times. Right, and their serving numbers not the best on the other side. 3 aces for 21 errors. You want it to be a little bit more even on the side of Perugia, and that was how Lube ultimately stayed in this match. Now, of course, it says that Perugia made 12 errors in serve receive, whereas Lube only made 10 aces. So that's the classic volleyball ace where someone's touched it and it's been shanked, and they're just not giving someone the ace out there. So that's fun. That is fun. But to me, it kind of came down to 2 things. One, Perugia was way better in the middle. And we see that in the blocking numbers. Of course, 3 blocks for Augustin Lazer, and then also 3 blocks for Roberto Russo. But so efficient down the middle was Perugia. Lazer ultimately was 11 for 13 in attack, with hitting an 85%, and Russo 8 for 10. So combined, they were 19 for 23 down the middle. Was Perugia, and then from there they were just able to spread the ball out. Vasim Bentara continues to be very, very good. He was 16 for 26 with 2 blocks and an ace, hitting a 62% in this match. And then the same thing, Kamil Semeniuk, passing fairly well, 45% positive, 35% perfect, 12 kills on 29 attempts, hitting a 41%. And I really thought that once Perugia was able to mitigate the serving, if they're able to get into a better hitting position, then from there, it was kind of all Perugia. I think defensively, Lube did a better job. I really do wish I had defense numbers from this match, but of course, that's not something that we get in the Lega volley because, digs don't matter. Bean dog shout out, digs don't matter. No one cares about digs. And now Lube, they are decent in terms of like keeping the errors low. They only had 6 errors, but I felt that their offense was not clicking. The speed of their offense was not there. Bonifonte was kind of spraying the ball all over the place. Especially like at this point, it sounds like the Bulgarians are really the Bulgarian forums and chat boards and stuff on Twitter are really pushing to get Moni to come in already for Lube, because Bonifonte, I thought, was where they really struggled in this match. It was not the same rhythm of offense that we usually see from Lube, that we saw from Lube last year in the playoffs, that ultimately led them beating Perugia in that semifinals. And to me, like the 13 blocks was a lot of how tight that ball was being set. The location and the rhythm for Bonifonte just wasn't there in this match. Still, Alex Nikolov wasn't too bad. He was 18 for 40, but he did get blocked 6 times. Mattia Botolo, also all right. He was 11 for 20, but did get blocked 4 times. My boy Eric Lepke was left high and dry in a number of occasions. He was 0 for 1. He was 0 for 8 in offense, ended up getting pulled. And ultimately, I think it's just because Poria can hit a high ball a little bit better than Lepke. And Poria came on, and I thought Poria was really good. He was 9 for 19 in this one with 2 blocks and 2 aces, ended up with 13 points. But to me, it all comes down to the middle battle down the middle. Gargiulo was 6 for 12 with no blocks. Weltahir, 1 for 3, only got the 1 block. They ended up bringing in the young Davi Tenorio from Brazil. He was only 1 for 2 with no blocks as well. And then while Lube did make 10 or 12 aces, however you want to look at it, they did make 26 errors. So, the ratio of aces to errors is still a little bit better than Perugia in this one, but that was the one area that they were able to put on some pressure. Offensively, I just didn't feel like their offense was cooking the way that we've saw it, especially last year in the playoffs. And to me, it came down to Mattia Bonifante, because he was in system on serve receive 31% of the time, right? This team passed 45% positive, 31% perfect, and they have the hands and the ability on the entirety of the roster to set out of system. So round one goes to Perugia. They not dominate, but they handled this first matchup nicely. Honestly, I was a little surprised that it went to 5. I thought Perugia should have got it done in 4, but that's how good the Lega volley is. Moving on, just to touch on a couple of matches. Piacenza picked up another win. No, their first win of the season. It's only Trentino, Verona, and Perugia who are undefeated this year. But yeah, Piacenza picked up their first win of the season. And there is one thing that I do want to point out here is the play of Alessandro Bovalenta, because this one was a right side battle. It was two of the best opposites in the league going toe-to-toe, and Bovalenta definitely won this round. Bovalenta overall 36 for 27 with a 66% efficiency and a block. On the other side of the net, Ferry Regers had to carry Milano, and he was 22 for 46 with 2 blocks and 3 aces with a 39% efficiency, which isn't bad all around. But to me, it's all about how Piacenza is able to open things up. I think Paolo Porro has done a really, really good job at running this offense. We didn't see the same connection that we saw with Simon. Simon was outstanding last week. He was only 2 for 7 in attack, but he did have 4 blocks to lead his team in that category and did have another block. And then we did see Efe Mandaracha start this game. Finally, we saw him not play against Poland in the quarterfinals of the World Championships due to injury. He came in and did a really good job. On 16 targets, he passed 50% positive, 25% perfect. He did get injured or aced 3 times, but offensively, ooh-wee, right? When your 2 pins are hitting as good as Bovalenta and Mandaracha were in this one, Bovalenta was 10 for 15. No unforced errors, did just get blocked the one time, and that ultimately ended up in a 3-1 win for Piacenza. They won the first 28-26. Then Milano came back and won the second 25-14. Then it was 25-17, 25-18 for Perugia to finish things out. And yes, Steven Cachopa is injured. Him and the Belgian outside Sepe Rotti ran into each other in a preseason match, and both of those guys have been injured and are out to begin this season. So not what you want to see for Milano, and ultimately I think that's kind of what is holding Milano back, because they just end up being just a high ball offense, an outlet to the right side. Racine, not that great, only a 27% efficiency. He was 12 for 29. We did see Otsuka in this one as well. He was all right. He was 10 for 22, but just the serve receive not really there for Milano. If you keep it away from Catania, who was really good at 60% perfect or positive, 20% perfect, but Otsuka 39% positive, 14% perfect, and Racine 29% positive, 7% perfect. Overall as a team, they were only in system 13% of the time off of serve receive, so that was not great for Piacenza. Now, moving on to the last match that I do want to talk to was the relegation battle between Cisterna and Cuneo. And Cuneo did a really good job at just spreading that ball around. They hit 61% as a team, and all of their offensive players got at least 8 points. Zaitsev being the lowest scorer with 8. He was 5 for 12, which I thought is managed really, really well. Zaitsev can't be a guy who's going to be able to take on a huge load. Instead, give that to the young Nathan Fahal, who was 12 for 20, hitting a 60% in this match with a couple of aces. And then you have Lorenzo Corderin down the middle, 4 for 4 in attacking with 4 blocks and an ace. Also led his team in attempts. You'll love to see it. Marko Sedlacek, not too bad as well. 9 for 16 in attack, and a really good win for Cuneo as they are looking to stave off relegation. And now, basically, 15 points should be able to save you. If you get more than 15 points, you should be golden to stay away from relegation this year. And on the other side, Cisterna is a team who lost a lot. If you watch my preview, which is finally up, I saw it took so long, but Cisterna lost so much from this past year. And you know what? Their highest point scorers with Lanza getting 8 and Daniele Manzoni getting 8 as well was as much as the least amount of scoring from the Cuneo side. So I think it was really disappointing to see Tommaso Barotto, the young Italian, go 3 for 11 and have a negative efficiency in this one. Lanza 7 for 22, and it just seems like they are struggling to get some scoring. Thomas Guzzo did come off the bench, go 6 for 11, while F.A. Byron went 5 for 15 for Cisterna. And I don't know, early on, they might be the team to watch for relegation, as there's 3 teams so far who do not have wins in the Lega Volley: Cisterna, Grottazzolina, and then Monza. Now, looking forward to this week, we do have a 2 match day week here in Italy. So first off, there's going to be a full slate of games on Wednesday, all of them going down at 3:30 p.m. European time. So that is 8:30 p.m. European time. That is 3:30 p.m. for the Eastern time zone, 12:30 noon in the Pacific time. And there is one big matchup to watch out for, a big rematch of last year's Scudetto finals between Lube and Trentino. That one's going to have to be the match that you're going to watch, no doubt about it. But I do think that there is going to be some interesting ones. Other than Perugia, Padova, I think these are all interesting ones. You got a mid-table fight between Verona and Verona and Milan. And then you also have Piacenza taking on Modena. So those are going to be 2 fun games to watch. And then you also have the relegation teams go in battle. Cisterna, Grottazzolina, both of those teams. One of those teams is going to get their first win of the season. We all know we're cheering for TGE. That's just how things go, right? They're an absolute favorite amongst ours, right? So TGE looking pretty good. Monza also going to be taking on Cuneo in another relegation battle. I'm going to try to go through this a little bit faster, but I'm not sure if I can. Now, moving forward to the Lega Volley Femminile, jumping over to the women's side. There was a makeup/preview match from week 13 that did happen midweek last week, because 3 of these teams will be playing in the Champions League. And while Conegliano beat Monviso/Pinerolo 3-0, there was a really big matchup between Milano and Scandicci. And now, heading into this match, Milano had just taken down Perugia in a great Supercoppa final. We got the women's Supercoppa, didn't get the men's. And then on the other side, Scandicci had really been struggling, but the tables were turned in this one. This was hands down Scandicci's best match of the year. They get the 3-dong, 25-23, 25-22, 25-23, and it was a full team affair. Of course, Antropova leading the way as always. She had 18 points. She was 16 for 34 with a block. And surprisingly enough, no aces. No aces as well. Steven, now you're right. Scandicci on the heels of a really bad loss, really doing well. But to me, it was all about how Scandicci passed the ball well. They passed 72% positive, 47% perfect as a team, really led by Avery Skinner. Now, Avery Skinner's offensive numbers were decent. She was 11 for 20, did get blocked 3 times, but she had a block and an ace for 14 points altogether, second highest score for Scandicci in this one. But passing just lights out. She had 27 targets, really getting pressured in this match. 27 of total 61 targets, so almost passing 50% of the serve receive balls for Scandicci in this one, and a 63% positive with a 48% perfect. Love to see it from Avery Skinner, and it's really nice to see Scandicci with a 3-pronged attack. You've got Antropova on one wing. She's always going to be dangerous. Avery Skinner can always pop off and be a top scorer. And then Camilla Weitzel, also down the middle, getting 18 attempts. And you can tell how important she is to this team, going 7 for 18 with 2 blocks and an ace. And that's, of course, because you still have Caterina Bossetti, and she passes unreal, right? On 11 targets, 91% positive, 82% perfect. And that's why, like, if Skinner can pass this well between Bossetti and Brenda Castillo, arguably one of the best liberos in the game. She passed 77 and 27 on 22 targets, but Bossetti was 91% positive, 82% perfect. It's a guaranteed dime if you serve to Bossetti in this match. So when you're trying to put that amount of pressure on and they're passing that well, it is just not going to go great. And then the other side of things, early on in the season, it looked like Milano was going to have some outside issues. That's exactly what we saw in the Supercopa early on. Then they brought in Emma Kanyin, and she was great. I don't know why they didn't go back to her, because you've got Paolo Agonu, who maybe wasn't the most efficient, but she was still 21 for 38 with scoring 21 points. But other than Kalia Lanier, who was 11 for 25, not the best efficiency with 3 unforced errors and getting blocked 3 times, you don't really have anyone to score, right? You had Pietrini in there for all of those sets. She ended up being 3 for 12, and her passing was kind of poor, 32% and 16% perfect on 25 targets, the most of her team. You really have to wonder why they're not going with Emma Kanyin, right? Why they're not trying something a little bit different out there for Milano, or Rebecca Piva as well too, because this was a Milano team that didn't look like they were having a great time out there. They looked gassed. And now Scandici had actually lost a 5-setter on Sunday, and Milano lost a 5-setter on Saturday. You'd think Milano would have that one extra day, but maybe they partied a little bit. Maybe they were still a little hungover from the match, okay? So this one was a little bit of a disappointing match as Scandici gets the 3 dong. And then moving on to what was the real match day this week, match day leg number 5. We saw, if you joined us for the watch along, thank you very much, was an absolute snore fest. I was literally falling asleep through this match as Conegliano dominated Novara 3-0. But some of the other big results this week is Chieri getting a big win over Bergamo. And those were 2 playoff teams last year, and Chieri dominating them. And then Perugia upsetting one of the hottest teams in the league right now in Cuneo. Cuneo had 3 dong Scandici just a few weeks ago, and didn't get the job done in this one. If you're looking at the Conegliano match, they were just so dominant. This is what I was expecting to see from Conegliano this year, led by Gabi and, of course, Isabel Hawk. Gabi was outstanding. She was 13 for 20 in attack with a 65% efficiency, made no errors, did not get blocked. Was also passing outstanding, 77% positive, 50% perfect on 22 targets. Isabel Hawk continues to be the best player in the league. She is absolutely dominating the ball. I'm surprised it's not getting popped because of how big she is swinging right now. Just going straight OT all game long on this one. They had her matched up nicely against Mayu Ishikawa, and it was just OT all day long. She was 17 for 32 with a block and 2 aces. I was a little bit disappointed by Fatoumata Silla, who got the start in this one. She was only 6 for 24. And I want to see her be a little bit more dynamic, right? Zhu Ting has him getting it done offensively. And I know Zhu is going to join, it's like the Chinese national games. It's not their national league, but I'm not entirely sure how it works. June has explained it very poorly to me. So everyone go in the Discord and blame June, okay? So I need to see Silla be a little bit more dynamic offensively. I need her to see her score a little bit more, especially against a Novara team that doesn't have their starting opposite right now. Like, they started a 3 outside hitter. They went to Britt Herbots on the right side because they clearly didn't have trust in Taylor Mims. And they did end up bringing in Mims, and I thought she was all like very good. She was 7 for 14 ultimately. Maybe they made that change a little too late, as Mayu Ishikawa struggled in this one. She was 4 for 14 in attack, and it just seemed like with the big block of Hawk in front of her that they were just unable to get anything going. Herbots led the way for a paltry, very, very poor Novara offense in this one. She was 11 for 30 overall, and Novara really struggled overall in this one offensively, trying to get anything going. Lena Alsmeyer, not that great either. She was 4 for 17. Mayu Ishikawa, 4 for 14. Bonifacio and Ejiri are the two, like, once again, Novara is really led by their middles, as, you know, Bonifacio had 8 and Ejiri had 9. Ejiri got the ace. Bonifacio got 1 block, but only 1 block for Novara. I think they should be kind of the second best blocking team in league, and they just weren't. As I mentioned before, also Chieri getting a really nice win over Bergamo. And Bergamo, man, Sesse, Montalvo, what is happening? This is one of the top scorers. She was the top scoring outside last year in the Lega Volley Femminile, and just not getting it done out here. 2 for 14 with a negative efficiency. Kendall Kipp not getting it done either. No one on the Bergamo side in double digits, whereas Chieri, I mean, Annette Nemeth has been a constant. She has been one of the top scorers this year in the Lega Volley Femminile, has done a really good job. Same story here in this one, 17 for 32 with 2 blocks. And man, Chieri overall 14 blocks as a team in a 3-dong, 14 blocks, 3 aces. And it doesn't seem like in every single match, it seems to be, you know, sometimes it's Stella Nervini. This time it was Laura Kunzler as that second outside, going 11 for 27 with a 41% efficiency. Really well done by Chieri. And then also, as I mentioned before, Cuneo just not getting the job done. Should have got the win over Perugia. Had them on the ropes. Won that third set 25-16, and then lose the fourth 25-15, and then 15-8. And, you know, Masa Pucelli, the Slovenian, still putting up some good numbers. Binto Diop as well, but Erica Pritchard, 5 unforced errors, and ultimately for Cuneo, 18 unforced errors as a team. That is not what you want to see. And I mean, Perugia wasn't even great either offensively, but they really kept the errors down. 28 overall errors for Cuneo in this matchup, whereas Perugia just kept things low on the error side, only 15 as a team, 9 attacking, 6 in serving, but then also added 12 blocks led by Benedetta Bartolini for Perugia for this one to end a really nice run by Cuneo. And Perugia with their second win of the year, and Consolini, the only team in the Lega Volley Femminile without a win. Conegliano, the only team on the women's side in the women's Lega Volley Femminile. Lega Volley Femminile, that is a little redundant. I apologize. Still 5-0. Still 5-0. They did win that Supercoppa, but they are 5-0. Scandici sitting in second with also 14 points at 5-1. Chieri having a really good start to this season in third with 11 points. They are 4-1. Novara 4-1. Milano 3-2. Cuneo 3-2. Busto also getting a nice little win over, was it Valafolia? This week we won't have to look at the stats, or I didn't watch it, but yeah, Busto getting a nice little win over Valafolia as well. Looking forward for the Lega Volley Femminile coming up. Also playing Wednesday games. Scandici will be taking on Busto, which should be an interesting one. Chieri is going to have a real tough test taking on Conegliano. Cuneo will look to bounce back against Firenze. Valafolia and Bergamo will have a really nice matchup as well, as two playoff teams last year looking to fight and gain some ground. Milano should have an easy going against Perugia, and then a battle of the Or sorry, that one is going to be on Thursday. Same thing with this one, a battle of the relegation teams between Consolini is going to be taking on Macerata also on Thursday. All right. Moving forward, I'm just going to try to go through as much as possible in this one. We're already 4 matches into the Sultan League in Turkey. Now, I did watch a couple of these matches, not as many as I would have liked. However, we do have the 2 top teams in the league really cementing themselves at the top of the league, both Fenerbahce and Vakifbank at 4-0 so far. Both of them with a total, or with a maximizing everything with their total 12 points. And for Vakifbank especially, they went out and got 2 fantastic wins this week. First and foremost, taking down Zawiercie 3-1 on Wednesday. Zawiercie won 25-23 in the first, and it was all Vakifbank after that, 25-23, 25-21, 26-24. And then also, over the weekend, Vakifbank with another tough matchup against Galatasaray, one of the other big teams, winning that one in a 3-dong, 26-24, 25-19, 25-17. And to me, Vakifbank is really come down to how good Marina Markova has been. Markova has been outstanding. She scored 28 against Zawiercie in the first match, and then 17 against Galatasaray in the second one. That one, they spread out the offense a little bit more. 17 for Markova, 16 for Boskovic, 13 for Gunesh. And on the other side, when they played Zawiercie, I know I'm a little bit all over the place. Now, this Zawiercie team actually kind of like the composition. You have a Briar Karakurt who passed well in this one. On 27 targets, she's passed 56% perfect and positive and 30% perfect. She was 21 for 42 attacking. Now, she did make 6 unforced errors, which could be, a little bit better. But for me, I really want to see Magdalena Stisiak be a little bit better than 16 for 38. I need to see her have a little bit better efficiency than 24%. If she can bring up that efficiency to plus 30, then they can, this was a really close match against Vakifbank last week, right? All of the sets going to the limit, more or less. So that is a winnable match for Zawiercie. And I know you've got a new coach there and a new players and stuff like that, but still, I want to see a little bit more from that Zawiercie team. And looking at the Galatasaray side against Vakifbank as well. Miriam Silla, really good job, 14 for 36, only a 22% efficiency, but it doesn't seem like she's getting any help from the rest of her team. Ilkin Aydin, 6 for 18. Even worse from Kaya Gorbelna. She was 6 for 24 with only a 4% efficiency. So Galatasaray is going to need to figure something out. No doubt about it. Out there, Karatasu has to be the girl. Karatasu has to be going in and starting these matches, and she just really isn't right now at this moment. Now, I'm going to head over to the EFL League just to touch in. They are just 1 match into the season, and we did have right away for basically the second time in a week, we had Ziraat Bank taking on Fenerbahce, and Ziraat Bank once again leaning on Emir Abdelaziz. He was 18 for 32 with a 44% efficiency. He also got 2 aces, and you know what? It just seems like everything is falling into place nicely for Ziraat Bank. 20 for Emir Abdelaziz, 16 for Tamas Fornal, who was 14 for 23 with a 52% efficiency. Love to see it. Trevor Klevno, not really getting that much volume. He was 6 for 13, but still made no errors and passed 50% perfect on 14 targets. And then Chavez as well. Emir Chavez with 10 points down the middle. So not surprising out there that Ziraat Bank 3-donged Fenerbahce. Last time they played in the Super Cup, or the Champions Cup as they call it in Turkey, they got a 3-1 win. Now it was a 3-dong, and Engapeth led things for Fenerbahce. He was 11 for 23 with 4 aces, and he had 16 points. While Adis Lagumja needs to be a little bit better. 12 for 25, but he did get blocked 5 times out there. And then other than those two guys, really not much offensive support. Mirza Lagumja only had 5. Tunanyeze only had 6. And I really want to see, I think this team looks different if you have Julio Gomez setting. Druzga is washed. Druzga is old and he's washed. I don't think that he should be starting for this team, but that is just my own personal opinion. Now moving on to one of the other big teams in Turkey, Halkbank. Now remember, this is going to be a Champions League team, and they went the distance with a Alanya team that I just don't think matches up. It was a 3-2 win for Halkbank. They won the first 25-18. Alanya won the second 29-27. Then it was 25-20 for Halkbank, then 28-26. Ultimately, Halkbank took it 15-9. But Halkbank, you're getting 21 out of Leal. You're getting 20 from Svetsan Sokolov. You're getting 19 from Matej Kaczynski. If this was 2015, this would be a banger lineup. But it's just so old. Such an old team, and even so much that Sokolov played 4 sets. And then Sotola, who hadn't even touched the court at all, came in the 5th and got 3 points and helped them clutch it out. So this Halkbank team, I think, is going to need a lot of help. A lot of help. And over on the Alanya side, they had 27 from Sadat Bardia, the Iranian. He was really good in this one, 25 for 42. He did get blocked 7 times and just ended up having a 33% efficiency. But you know who is backing him up? You know who's the second best scorer for this Alanya team? Stephen Marshall, the ice cream man himself, going out there and dropping 15 points, 12 for 26 in this one. So, I mean, I look at this Alanya roster, there is no reason whatsoever for them to be going to 5 with Halkbank. But Halkbank has a really, really old team. I don't think Hofer has fully recovered, but I don't know if we're necessarily going to get to see him with, the geriatrics in front of him on this Halkbank team. Sorry, just needed a quick sip of water there. I've been talking nonstop here. Also, another match to touch on was Galatasaray taking on Altekma. Altekma, led by none other than Jordan Ewart. And Jordan Ewart was outstanding this one. He had 28 points. He is 23 for 33 with a 61% efficiency, had a block and 4 aces to keep his team going. But ultimately, they could not keep up with what is a pretty stacked Galatasaray team. 18 from Jean Patry, 16 for Thomas Jeschke, and then 11 from Stephen Marr in this matchup in the SVL League. And before we go and finish things off with Japan, I do want to touch on the Bundesliga, because the Bundesliga, we're seeing something that I don't think I've ever seen, and that is Berlin at the bottom of the table, starting the season 0-2 after yet another loss this past week over against Düren. And you know what? In match number 1 for Berlin, it was their left sides who couldn't get it, who could not get the job done with Ruben Schott and Moritz Reichardt. Reichardt was much better in this one. He had 15, but this time it was Jake Haynes. Jake Haynes, man, I think Jake Haynes is somewhat criminally underrated. To me, he's a 20 bucket on a regular basis. And he only had 4 points in this one. So there has been some discussions I've seen in the German channel on the Discord about, is it a offense issue, or is the fact that you have Fedor Ivanov, the Finnish setter, who's a young guy who's come in to lead this team. And now I thought Ivanov did a pretty good job this year at the World Championships for Finland. So I will fully say that I have not watched any of these matches yet. I'm just reacting to the results here in the stats. But Düren a really good team matchup in this one. They hit 50% as a team. They had 9 blocks. They had 6 aces, led by none other than one of my favorite all-time Alberta Golden Bears, Jordan Canham. He had 21 points in this one. He was 20 for 34. He hit 59%. Also, Robin Baghdadi, one of my favorite Brandon Bobcats, had 19 in this one as well. Ryan Poole, I believe former Long Beach guy as well. On the other left side pin opposite to Baghdadi, he was 12 for 27 for 14 points. And then Petteri Tanisma, the Finnish terror in the middle with another 10 points as well in this matchup for Duren. So interesting to watch here for the Berlin Recycling Volleys as we look, where are they going to be playing next? Oh, they're going to be playing one of the Warner Mooden. Not entirely sure who that is, but also Wednesday, we're going to have a pretty good matchup, Friedrichshafen against Duren. That should be a good one. Lundberg, I believe they are at the top of the table to start this season. Right now, no, Duren is because they've played 3 matches, but Duren is undefeated at 3-0. They have 8 points. Gießen has 6 points. Friedrichshafen has 6 points. Both of them are 2-0. They have no sets dropped. Lundberg started off a little sketchy, but able to bring it back. They also are 2-0 with 5 points as well. Jonas van Heusen, the newest Canadian in the Bundesliga. If I'm not mistaken, Van Heusen is coming from Volleyball, because he's coming from UBCO, right? He was on the B team this summer. Who's he playing for? Let me just, yeah. Honestly, I'm really high on this guy. I am. Oh no, Fraser Valley. Yes, that is it. That makes a lot of sense. I am really high on Jonas van Heusen, and it looks like Van Heusen. It looks like Friedrichshafen has picked him up from Pribram of the Czech League to replace Jackson Young. And now, when I was watching the B team train this summer against the A team, Jonas van Heusen is a guy that I really had my eye on, just the way he moves and the way he hits the ball. There's some people in the Canadian system who thinks that Van Heusen hits the ball just as hard as Jordan Canham. And if you've ever seen Canham, he is Canham is a farm boy. He comes out from Navan, Ontario. Shout out to Navan. And, he hits the ball hard. But Van Heusen has a really, really good snap. And he also reads the game really well because he's a former setter. He spent some time setting for Fraser Valley as well, if I'm not mistaken. So Van Heusen is a guy that I'm really interested in. And, when there's been some people asking me about kind of some people, some specific people asking me of who to watch out for in the Canadian system, Van Heusen is a guy that really impressed me this summer with the B team. I think he has all the tools, and if he can kind of figure it out how to play at that level, I'm going to be very interested. If you guys could let me know, Jenna and everyone else in the Discord, how Van Heusen is looking for Friedrichshafen, I'd really appreciate that, because I'm actually super stoked that he got this contract with Friedrichshafen to kind of fill the gap that Jackson left. You know what? Just fill the hole with another Canadian. Why not, right? Why not fill the hole with another Canadian? As I take a sip of water before I head on to my last segment, which is the SV League from Japan. Because, first, Yana? Okay, we'll keep with that. Big shout out to Yana, by the way. She's one of our very dedicated Germans in the chat. Dutch German, if I'm not mistaken, correct? But yeah, as we move on to the SV League, it was the inaugural weekend in the top Japanese league. And of course, this is a league that really blew up last year. Last year was the first year of the SV League. Before, it was just the V League. S stands for Super. And there was a lot of changes made for this league. And now, if one of the big changes is, in Japan, there's like works leagues basically, and then professional leagues. And so a lot of the teams, that's why there was teams like Panasonic that had businesses or brand names, because there was guys who would play for the teams, but then also work for those businesses as well. But they finally made the change to a professional league. They've opened up a few foreigner spots, and they're going to be opening it up a little bit more. There is now that what am I trying to say here? Oh yeah, now there is like a spending floor for the SV League, and there's also a minimum seating requirement for the halls and stadiums in Japan. So you absolutely love to see it. But this first week was very, very interesting. There's 10 teams in the SV League, and 4 of the 5 series, because in Japan they play back-to-back games. They play 48 matches in the Japanese SV League. No, that's not right. It'd be 9 times 4. So that's 54 matches. Holy shit. That is so many matches, because you play each team 4 times and you play back-to-back in the SV League. And so this one was a very interesting opening weekend, because we saw 4 of the 5 series go to splits. And splits is like one team wins one, the other team wins the other. Only Nagano was able to go 2-0 this weekend, led by my boy, Matt Neves, Canadian. But we'll talk about that in a second, because the first matchup that you have to talk about here is Osaka Blution against Osaka Suntory Sunbirds, right? Suntory is a legendary alcohol company. I know they make like whiskey and gin. Very good whiskey, by the way. As a bartender, I do love Suntory gin. But, I do think heading into this year that this Suntory team has to be, they are the favorites, as they did win the league last year. They beat JTech in the finals. And when you look at the moves that this Suntory team made, I really like them. Now, they brought in, I don't think they brought in, they have Ran, they have Mazursky, they have Igor Kliuka. They also brought in Sakita, and I believe Ogawa. So Tomohiro Ogawa is their libero. And now match 1 of this series did go to Blution. And now they didn't start Kliuka. They kept Kliuka on the bench, did Suntory. And I'm sorry, but Kliuka might be one of the funniest translations, just because that is honestly, the translation is making it a little bit racist. So match 1 went to Blution. They started De Armas instead of Kliuka. And side note, do we think De Armas is now technically Japanese, right? He went to high school in Japan, and it looks like he has Japanese citizenship, which works well because he doesn't count as a foreigner on this roster. But Suntory just made a lot of errors in this match. They made 9 attack errors, and they only had a 34% efficiency and made 24 serving errors, which ultimately really held them down. Well, on the other side for Blution, Osaka, it was a much different story. They had 5 aces to only 19 serving errors, and then they had 8 attacking errors, and as well 6 blocks. So it was really split up by Nishida on the right side for Blution, and then Miguel Lopez. Lopez was 15 for 27 with a 37% efficiency, and then Nishida was 14 for 29 with a 34% efficiency. Now, I didn't really watch this. I didn't watch it at all. I'm not going to say I didn't really watch it. I did not watch this match at all. The Japanese matches are really hard for me to watch because they are in the middle of the night. But I do think I'm going to try to watch some of these matches on replay, because it was, very clear to me just by looking at the stats that there is a little bit more support. They have Larry. They being Blution have Larry and Yamauchi down the middle, which helped some things out. But there is a big question for me in the P2 position for this Blution team, because last year they had Tomasz Jeśki and Miguel Lopez, and that was a huge difference. I thought Jeśki was a really good anchor for this team. They lost him. We just talked to say that he went to Galatasaray, and instead they have Kai and Tomita, and just neither of these guys seem to be able to get it done. Tomita was better coming in off the bench. He was 7 for 11 with a 45% efficiency in the first match. However, match number 2 was a different story, as it was a 3-1 win in favor of Suntory. In this match, the Sunbirds were able to pop it out, and you know what? Once again, that P2 position really struggled between Kai and then Tomita. Lopez had 14 and Nishida had 16, whereas, man, Mazurski, still unreal. He had 57 points in total this weekend. He had 27 in the first loss, and then 30 in the second loss, and there was just way less errors for Suntory in this one. They didn't get blocked nearly as much in match number 1 and only had 13 serving errors. So 30 points for Mazurski, 17 for Rand Takahashi, who not too bad for Takahashi for Rand, considering everything that he was going through in the social world, let's say, in Japan. I don't really need to jump onto it. I'm sure that so many people have jumped onto it. But essentially, it looks like he's been cheating on his girlfriend with escorts. Not the best look for Rand, but also, like, he is a professional athlete. Like, it should be expected. Okay, I don't really know what to say about that. I don't necessarily see him less as an athlete because of it. I know that the Japan and the SV League servers and sections on their Discord have been up in arms. And to me, it just is what it is, right? There's forks found in the kitchen. Athletes, especially guys who are at the stage and stature that Rand is, tend to not be, tend to do this kind of stuff, and good. I'm glad the league doesn't care at all. They shouldn't. Guy likes to ball off the court too. Yeah, exactly. Okay. And honestly, like, I kind of like a little bit of a scandal. Just brings a little bit of attention to our sport in the different leagues. But yeah, Osaka, the Osaka Derby between Blution and Suntory. Last year, Blution finished third, I believe, tied for third with Nagoya. Goes in a split. Now moving forward to another split between Hokkaido and JTech. And I actually watched this one because these matches started at it was like 11:30 or like midnight Eastern time. So I was able to lay in bed and fall asleep watching these matches. And these were two very different matches. Hokkaido was unreal in this first set. They had a 39% efficiency as a team and really just spread the ball out well. They had Yushan Yichang from Taiwan with 19 points, then Kota Ikeda with 19 points as well. Timo Timatu on the left side, 16 points. I think he was down the middle. Yeah, 16 points. He was 7 for 9, had a 78% efficiency, 5 blocks and 4 aces. And then another Estonian, Mart Tametu, with 15 points as well. And Hokkaido was really good in this one. They had 15 blocks and 7 aces as a team with only 18 errors overall. And they were just really targeting TJ in this first match. And you could tell that he was getting a little bit frustrated. I didn't think he was passing all that poorly, but he was getting aced. And he ended up getting aced 4 times on 28 targets. And in this first match, they were really running their offense through Stéphane Boyer. He was all right. 20 points overall, 15 for 38, which isn't great, and only a 16% efficiency, mostly due to the fact that he was blocked 7 times. And Hokkaido, like, their serving was strong in game number 1, their blocking was strong in game number 1, and then their offense was strong in game number 1. We did see Lucarelli come off the bench a little bit for JTech. He was 6 for 6 in the third set, but that's all we really saw him in this series. Yeah, it was just like they just clearly didn't have the scoring power that they wanted, and they still didn't have Masahiro Sakita in this match either. Moving on to night number 2, and it was a bit of a different story, or a lot of a different story, as they started running that offense through TJ, and it was a different story altogether. He didn't get aced at all in this matchup, and it looked like Hokkaido didn't have the same intention with their serving, as he was only targeted 16 times in this matchup and was way better offensively. 25 for 41 overall with a 49% efficiency and a block as well. And then you also Kentahiro Takahashi down the middle. He was 5 for 7 with 4 points. And you're saying JTech's real P2 is Fujiwara, who is also injured. And I agree that he should be their P2, but I can't really see him actually being their P2 over Lucarelli. Like, Lucarelli is still world class, and Fujiwara not necessarily at Lucarelli's level. But if they're able to go to him, and that's the thing, is that this JTech team, like, once you get Fujiwara back, once you get Lucarelli back, once you get Sakita back, this team is going to be a much different team altogether. Kind of a lot like how JTech lost Miyaura last year throughout a big part of the season, and they went on a bit of a slump, and they had to move TJ to the right side. But another split here in Japan this week, as in this one, JTech 3-dong Hokkaido after losing 3-1 in match number 1. All right, moving on as well. We also saw a split from, no, sorry, not Sakita. Sakita's playing for Suntory. He moved on as well. I apologize. But yeah, moving on to Nagoya against Hiroshima. Nagoya did lose their top scorer to Namiro Aziz from last year, and you know what? I don't think they did a terrible job at filling some holes. They brought in Kento Miyaura, who, of course, isn't Namir, but he can still score really, really well. They also brought in Bugera, the Moroccan, Tunisian outside. And then they also have Timothée Caro, who clearly isn't ready to play just yet. This one went the distance. It was a 3-2 win for Hiroshima. And a big shout out to Cooper Robinson, who dropped 23 points in his first match ever as a pro. He was 21 for 37 with a 46% efficiency. So you'll love to see that. But then on night Tunisian, thank you. Tunisian for Bugara. Night number 2, it was all Nagoya as they bounced back nicely with a nice little 3-0 win. I think the big difference between Nagoya the big difference for Nagoya in these two matches is they were just able to settle down their offense a little bit, whereas Hiroshima, they got scoring from everyone in the first match, and then could only get Cooper Robinson going in match number 2, and he was 15 for 34 with a 29% efficiency. So Robinson is definitely going to get a lot of swings for this Hiroshima team, as their other foreigner is Martinez, who is another Cuban, and it's not looking like he's doing too well so far. So y'all in the Discord who are probably going to watch him, I don't know if I'll watch too much Hiroshima this year. Before we talk about the only 2-set win, we also have another split between Toray and the Tokyo Great Bears. So match number 1 went to the Tokyo Great Bears, led by none other than Bartosz Kurek, the Polish legend. He had 28 points in this one and was supported by Rikuto Goto, who had 19 as well. He had 4 blocks. King Daju also had 4 blocks while going 6 for 12, and Kurek went 23 for 48 with 4 blocks as well in this first match, where it was all Kirill Kretz, the Russian, with 26 points, as well as Julio Cardenas with 25 points on the Torre side of things. And then match number 2, it was a 3-1 win for Torre in this one. Kretz as once again with 28, and Cardenas with 16. And man, what is it with Taylor Averill playing on teams where you just can't get any time because of the foreigner limit? So we'll have to see what Torre does in the long term. This one also, Takashi Kusumoto coming up big in this one, going 14 for 23 for 15 points for Shizuoka. While as for Tokyo, Kurek obviously not getting the play that he wanted to, coming in off the bench in the third. Was 15 for 28 for 16 points, and Luciano Vicentin had 13 points in the loss for Tokyo. And then finally, to wrap things up, the only team to go 2-0 this weekend was Nagano. And Nagano was led by a 3-headed tiger in terms of Oscar, who I believe is Brazilian? Yeah. And then Yuji Kudo, but then also my guy, Matt Neves. Matt Neves, who played for Duren last year. Kusumoto is 177. That's wild. That's wild. I might have to drink coffee sometime and just stay up for some of these V-League, SV League matches, and I'll do a watch along, and some of you guys can kind of teach me what's going on, because I would like to know way more about the SV League. It's just at a really unfortunate time. But yeah, Matt Neves with 20 points in the opener. And on the other side of the net, Matt Anderson, who comes in to replace Shawan Vernon Evans, big shoes to fill. And y'all are laughing at that, but Shawan Vernon Evans was a perennial top 5 scorer in this league for 3 or 4 years. Matt Anderson had to play both pins in this one because Tommaso Rinaldi was absolute shit. So Rinaldi was 3 for 10, started sets 1 and 2, and then in the third, they brought in Ulrich Dahl, the Dane, to play on the right side, and then brought Anderson on to the left side and ended up getting targeted 19 times. He was passing 53% positive and 33% perfect, while hitting 20 for 33, 61% and 55%. And now, in speaking to Luciano Polonsky, who was also on Sakai last year with Show, he was kind of explaining to me that this is a team that spends a lot of money on foreigners, but maybe not so much money on some of that local talent. And while they did bring in Oya to set this team, I don't know any of these other Sakai guys, and I'm not entirely sure if they're going to be able to run with most of the teams, because Nagano isn't necessarily a good team in this league, right? And they handled them in 2 straight matches, and Yuji Nikudo's a good prospect to watch. I mean, he dropped 20 points in this first match. He was on the national team this summer. Love to see it. It is funny that Matt Neves kind of went toe-to-toe with Anderson in his first match in Japan, because I remember years ago when he was playing for UBC, I was going to visit their gym, and their coaches, big shout out to my guy, Matt Kruger, who was telling me that that Neves reminded them so much of Matt Anderson. So just kind of a full circle moment there. And then in match 2, it was much the same. Neves even better in this one. He was 23 points, 19 for 40 with 3 blocks and an ace. Did have a 38% efficiency. And Yuji Kudo with 15 points. And Oscar, I think it's Oscar Roque actually, is for Nagano. Actually, we're gonna look that up right now, because I don't know who Oscar is, and I know I looked at it earlier and saw, and so we're gonna look this up right now. Oh, Oscar Madsen. He is another Dane. Don't know who that is. His best server in the Extra Liga last year in Czechia. Okay, good to know. But yeah, once again, that's not the tab that we want. 23 points for Matt Neves. He had 43 overall in his opening weekend for Japan. Matt Anderson comes up big again with 20 points, this time all on the right side, as Tommaso Rinaldi was pretty good as well. With 20 points, he was 17 for 26 with a 50% efficiency, a block, and 2 aces. But other than that, none of these other Sakai Blazer guys being able to come up and do a really good job. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, because the Blazers were a decent team last year, and this year not so much. So really not that much to see when you look at the standings here in the SV League. Nagano 2-0 to start the year with a full 6 points. Nagoya, Shizuoka are tied for second with 4. And then you've got JTech, Suntory, Blutian, Hokkaido, all with 3. And then Tokyo Great Bears and Hiroshima Thunders, both with 2. So this year, I think that'd be fun. Let me know. Mikochi Lee, let me know if you think it would be a fun time for me to do a watch along during the SV League, just to kind of get know some things, right? It's so hard. I know it's really hard for me to watch the SV League, but still, I think it would be a lot of fun. Okay, and I think that is going to do it for this first episode of the Volleyball Journal, technically third episode of whatever this solo show of mine is, and really appreciate all for listening and tuning in. Oh, that is going to be a big week. Tokyo Great Players, my bad. Sakai against Hiroshima. Actually, yeah. Let's before we close things out. I apologize. I don't want to give the short end of the stick here to the SV League. Let's see what is coming forward. Here this week, we have Suntory taking on Tokyo, Blutian taking on Hokkaido, Nagano taking on Nagoya, and then the Blazers taking on Hiroshima. And I do think that these 14:05 matches are decent times for me to watch. So that'll actually be a bunch of matches that I'll be able to watch on the weekend. Let me see. 14:05 in Eastern Time. Oh, yeah. Oh, wait. Duh, I'm stupid. In Japan, in Eastern Time. Oh, okay, never mind. 105. So maybe I could. Maybe late. I think when my clocks are pulled back, or no, they jump forward. I don't know. At some point, I'm going to watch SVL. We're going to do a nice little watch along. Ozzy, you can join because I know you're over there on that timeline, and y'all can teach me a little bit more about the SV League, because I would really like that. Ultimately, I'd love to be able to go to Japan one day to check things out, but I just don't know if that's in the budget just yet. All right. So I really appreciate everyone tuning in today. If ever there's something you want me to talk about, if there's, whether it's a match or a league, or, someone's popping off somewhere, just let me know. Join the Discord. Let me know in the comments, or join the Discord. Come hang out in the Discord. If you're not a part of the Volleyball Source Discord, what are you doing? It is the best online volleyball community in the world. They officially announced things today about the Club World Championships. Would love to see you commentating. Probably will not see me commentating. I can say that. I'm not saying never. I'm not going to say never out here. But I don't think I'll be commentating anytime soon for for Volleyball World. But I will definitely talk about it. I didn't see that they announced stuff for the Club World Championship, so I will look into that, and I'll talk about that next week, because I've been talking for almost 2 hours here, and my throat is sore, and I still got work I need to do today. But I love you all. Thank you all. If you're not a part of the Discord, come join it. It is the best online volleyball community in the world, and I am looking forward to seeing you guys there. Have a great night, and goodbye.